Hello and welcome to podcast number 4. I'm Jennifer Winder and this is Robin Mons, and we are so excited to get started with you today. Last week, we talked about a practice that you could use that would help you distinguish between mind hunger and body hunger. And we talked a little bit about what to do if your body was hungry compared to if your mind is hungry and how to address that. Well, there really are only 3 types of hungers outside of true body hunger. And today we are going to talk about one of those. In the upcoming episodes, we will talk about the other ones, but today we're going to address one. And each one, I believe most of you will be able to relate to. I know I can, especially this first one. So I'm going to introduce it, and then I'm going to have Robin kind of define it. But it is actually called damn eats. And it actually is basically exactly what it sounds like. So Robin, why don't you kind of tell them exactly the definition of that and how we look at it?
Right. Yeah. We chose to call it dam eats because I want you to think of a dam. The purpose of a dam, you're driving by, you're making the dam jokes. That's the kind of dam I'm talking about. Now, the purpose of that is to raise the water levels. We put up a strong wall against the water, and the purpose of it is to raise the water level. Now, this is the same thing that we do energetically with certain foods. This is when you say, no, I'm not allowed to have it. I shouldn't eat that. It's the moral labels that we give to foods: junk food, unhealthy, guilty pleasure. What
Bad.
else? Bad.
We always hear people say, I've been so bad.
Yes. Well, and good point, because that's exactly what happens is those moral labels, we use them again to protect ourselves from the food. We build a dam against, say, the water is the food and our desire for it. The dam we build against it is to protect us from it. But actually, we end up eating the thing eventually, and that moral label that we had put on the food transfers to us. This is why there's so much guilt and shame and frustration associated with eating and having a treat.
Right. We make it sound like it's this really, really bad thing so that when we eat it, all of those feelings follow it versus, yeah, it looks good. If I want some, I'll have some, or, whatever that may be. But, gosh, I've done that so many times, and I'm excited to hear you kind of talk about, and just to give you an example, I was at this event one time and I was like, yeah, I'm not going to eat that. I'm not going to eat that. I'm not going to eat that. And all I wanted to do was eat that. Mm-hmm. And when I got home, the dam broke. Like, I went without it there. And then I got home and it was like, well, I'm going to eat this and I'm going to eat this and I'm going to eat this because I didn't eat that. And now I want this. It's just like, a frenzy, a feeding frenzy, if you will.
Yes. Okay. That's so true. And I can so relate. Same exact behaviors. And I know your friends listening can too. Let's break that down. That was a great example. And let's break that down, how that works. So Jennifer goes to the event and she's like, I'm going to be a good girl. I'm going to say no. I'm going to, make the healthy choices. And so she's having the desire for it, but she's building the dam against it. Remember, the water's the desire. She builds the dam. No, I'm going to make the healthy choice. I'm going to be good. Then she comes home. And by the time she comes home, where's your desire level at? Where are you energetically?
Oh, it's overflowing.
Right. And so when she goes to eat, okay, now watch this. By the time she gets home, her desire is super high. The water levels have risen. And by the time she says, you know what, forget it. I'm going to have something. I didn't get to have something there. I'm just going to have something. When that dam breaks, where are you energetically in your desire?
Well, it's so funny that you say that, because it's not like a calm, peaceful eat. It's like ravished. My energy is overflowing. I'm not thinking. I'm definitely not checking in with myself. Mm-hmm. And I'm just go, 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 go.
Right. And that speaks to, we keep saying energy, and we teach this so much in our membership program because we think the problem is that we like cookies. We think the problem is that we're addicted to sugar. And really, it's so much about where we are energetically when we behave around food. And when a dam breaks, the water does not just trickle down. The action, the release of the water has to match the intensity of the level that it's at, right? And it's going to come gushing out. Same thing. I remember coming home too from events. I'd be good. I come home and I'm just tearing through the stuff. I'm not even being with the pleasure of it. My behavior matches. And then what do we conclude about ourselves after that frenzied eat? What do we say to ourselves?
Oh, I'm bad. I'm out of control. I can't even say no. Whatever it is. And I know for me in those situations, because like at the event, people would be like, wow, you're so good. Everybody around us gives it the moral labels, you guys. I get it all the time.
Yeah,
you're
we
so
do this.
good. You're not eating the sugar. I'm like, well, I just don't want it. Right. Or you're not eating this. So they'd be like, wow, you're so good. You're not eating it. And then I would come home and have this explosion. And then I would almost have guilt, like I was this fraud.
Oh, totally.
Right?
Oh my gosh. You guys listening, I know you're seeing it and that's okay. Like we're here with you saying that's a thing. And this is normal. This is kind of the normal way to function. And although it's normal, this is one of the things that majorly sabotages us. And that's why we want to address it, because we need to neutralize that energy. We don't want to build the dam up against our desire for food. Again, so when we say, I'm going to have a cheat day today, or, oh, I'm just going to let my hair down and have some. When we go to have some, bam, we're not just having some and we're not really enjoying it.
Well, yeah. And oftentimes when a cheat day comes or a cheat meal comes, it's like, well, I gave myself permission. And so I can eat all of this guilt-free. And in that feeding period, whether it's a day or a meal, it's just nonstop. Eat whatever you want because it's a free day. It still is that really crazy energy. Because even in a dam, sometimes they release that dam on purpose, right? To let some of that pressure out. It still comes out just as fast.
Right. So, even though it's intentional, right? Oh, I planned for this. Even though they plan for it, they have to prepare for the gush. It's not going to trickle. So true. So also one thing I wanted to point out, since we're on this, I bet that the foods you came home to, we're still with that social activity, right? There's that dessert you really wanted. You're being a good girl. You come home and then you go into the frenzy. I bet the foods you went to weren't even the ones that would be that pleasurable or satisfy you. That's when we're in the crackers and the chocolate chips in the drawer. Just anything.
Yeah, where you would have been just better off having a little bit of the dessert at the event.
Exactly.
If you wanted it that bad, right?
Right. You would have been better off having the thing you actually wanted, because at home, when we're in that frenzy going for it, we don't even get the fulfillment of having answered to that desire for pleasure. It just was kind of this frenzied makeup for it. And it still didn't satisfy that for us. And again, we're not present with it. We're truly not providing what we ultimately wanted. And many times we overeat on that end more than, and the impacts on our body are more than that slice of cake would have been. So important to remember.
I muted myself. I had a puppy barking, but then if you had just had some, and then using the same practice that we talked about last week, if you're at the event or whatever, I'm talking about an event because that's the story I told.
Yeah, stay with your example. Yeah.
But if you're at this event and you want some of the dessert, most of the time I take a bite or 2 bites and I'm so satisfied. I'm happy I had it, but I still listen to my body and I'm like, I'm full, I'm good. And I don't have this like longing. And there are times where I'm like, no, I'm good. Most of the time now, if I don't take, dam eats aren't as big of an issue, but every once in a while, they do still creep in with me. Sure. I am not perfect at that in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah. Well, like we say, by the time you become a conscious eater, 92 to 95% of the time, you don't have these things, right? You're not pressed with that desire, but there's always a part of us that will manage because of the environment we're in that we spoke about in the first episode.
And part of that is knowing that you're not saying no. right?
Yes. Yeah.
Knowing that if I want it, I will have some and I'll listen
Yeah.
to my body. And sometimes that takes away the desire because you all know we want what we can't have.
Right. Well,
So,
yeah, one example of this is a client who, was sharing how she had saved, her dessert night for Friday night when she knew she was going out with girlfriends. And so all week long, she was like, hanging on for dear life, saying no, no, no to the stuff, building that dam against
right.
it and waiting for her moment. And she said, I actually, by the time it came, because we had had a dinner, it was delicious. When it came time to go and get the dessert, I genuinely did not want any. It's not that she was trying to be good. There's a difference
Right.
when you're saying no, no, no from that damn energy that we talk about versus I actually don't even want it right now. But she said, but the dam broke because I was like, well, this is my one night I set aside. I have to do this. I have to make the most of this moment. And she's like, not only did I eat the dessert, but I like way overate because
Right.
again, she was in that energy. So this is what we want to watch for. And we're going to hone in a little bit more. I want to talk a little bit more about what causes this energy because it's very important. And we came down with 3 that we wanted to share and that we've already kind of mentioned, but let's break it down a little bit. We talked about the moral labels that we give to food. Okay. Why does that impact us so energetically and build that desire up?
Well, I think we take those moral labels we give food and we apply them to ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
If the food is bad and I eat the bad food, then I am bad.
Mm-hmm.
If the food is, good or naughty, naughty is another one we hear. Oh, I'm so
Yeah.
naughty,
Yeah.
I
I've been
eat that.
so
Then does
naughty.
that make you naughty when you eat that food?
Mm-hmm.
So moral labels, I feel like is one of the things that so many people, everyone seems to have a moral label for something. I will even hear somebody say, I can eat as much as I want, guilt-free. That's still a moral label. Even though it feels like a more positive one, it's still a moral label.
Right.
So the moral labels, they make the energy too high around the food. We have to neutralize it, right?
Absolutely. Yep. And that's the answer. And you're right. This touches every single person we've coached, including ourselves. And
Right.
the moral labels give that food so much charge. And here's the thing that happens is it builds so much of the charge, then it creates the behavior of binge eating or of just like where we say, oh, I do not know what happened to me last night. I just went out of control. And then what the brain does, what we conclude from that is I can't control myself around food. Cookies have a power over me that I can't handle. And we
Right.
see it as the food that creates this thing in us. But the good news, this is such good news, friends. It's not the food that creates that energy inside of us. It's our thoughts about it. It's the moral labels that we give to the food that creates the damn energy we're talking about. That increases the desire because you're putting up that wall. And then when you do give yourself the permission to eat it, that's when those behaviors come through. So watch that when you have those behaviors. Pay attention to the moral labels you are giving to food, not blaming the food for having this power over you or blaming yourself for being so weak.
Right. And, I wanted to add something popped in my mind when you were talking about that. When we're coaching our clients, one of the things we talk about is right here, we're talking about food, right? But this really rolls over into all aspects of our life.
Yeah.
Like think about the choices you make, like, well, I already did this, so I might as well just go for it while I'm in the rut before I get things up again. Or I think of, because I'm on the tail end of my teenagers, but I've just gone through 6 teenagers in the last few
Oh
years.
my gosh.
Like that whole, well, I already messed up. I'm already being bad anyway. I might as well do whatever I want when I'm in this bad mode.
Right.
And where no, as a parent, would we not want them to catch themselves and be like, no, I need to stop this now?
Yeah.
And it's that same thing. It's that same feeling with the damn eat. And it's
Right.
just, there's so many places in our life, right, where this can roll over and we can apply it. But here we're talking specifically about food. But I noticed as I got control of my damn eats, which happened more often than I'd like to mention, I got control of that in other areas too.
Beautiful. I love whenever we can make that connection, because we say all the time, we're eating every day, no matter how stressful life is, no matter what your routine is, no matter what, you're going to eat every day. And so when you can apply these conscious, practices and ways of being with food, you're strengthening that muscle, and it transfers everywhere in life.
Right.
So great point. So real quick, what's the answer to this? Moral labels, we know, give the high energy. We know that the energy, if it's neutralized, will behave differently. I want you to think about that. Have you ever been around food in a very calm state of being and then binged eat?
Well, yeah. And neutralize, sometimes that's hard for people to go, well, how can I actually neutralize it, right?
Yeah. How do we do that?
How do you do that? Because if it is a food that you don't regularly eat and all of a sudden you're like, yeah, I think I'm gonna have that. Sometimes it's really hard and it's really tricky to figure out, well, how am I going to neutralize around that? And this is what I have found. When my energy is high, I don't really even enjoy it. It's like I'm not tasting it.
Well, right. You're not present with it, right?
Yeah.
It's too much. So yeah. So the point here is, how do we neutralize this energy? Well, the best way we have found that is very simple to neutralize is recognizing we need to remove the moral labels. And we do this by correcting the brain when it's like, oh, cookies. And you're like, cookies are cookies. A salad is a salad, right? Because we tend to give high moral labels. And we're saying you don't want to give high moral labels to food over others. We want to see them all as neutral things that exist in our world. And then we decide from there how to interact with them. And so it's not a moral decision I'm making. I'm just seeing neutral things here. And when you make that decision from that energy, you will not behave in the ways you do when it's high. So that's what I started to do. I would go around my house, and anytime I was eating food, especially foods I knew I had moral labels with, I'd be like, licorice is licorice. Ice cream is ice cream. And it's in this non-exciting, neutral way that really helped my brain to calm down. And that is what our clients have applied to, and it's helped tremendously. So neutralizing the energy is huge, because like I asked you, like we were saying, have you ever gone into a frenzy when your energy is calm? No. Our behaviors and our energy are always a match. Yeah. So when we notice they're a little bit high, we can neutralize it and bring it down before we eat by getting ourselves to that energetic place or neutral place. And just saying that sentence is boring to the brain, but it works. It does neutralize your energy.
It sounds so simple. It sounds so simple, but it really does work. And the whole matching the energy is such a real thing. And it kind of goes along with the practice we taught last week. If you just kind of pause.
Yes.
And be like, this is just a cookie. It's not a free thing. It's not a this. It's not a that. I have a son. I'm going to tell you, he is on the spectrum. He has high functioning autism. Everything's black and white to him. He would never give a food a moral label. And I remember one time years ago being like, I cannot believe I ate that. That is so bad that I just ate that. And he literally looked at me and was like, it's just a roll, Mom.
Wow.
It's a roll. And I'm like, and he, of all my children, is probably the only one who eats for hunger and has from day one, right? Naturally, like it came to him.
Yeah, he doesn't get emotionally involved with the food.
With anything, but even with food, it serves him well, right?
Yes.
And so I'm like, you know what? You're right. It is just a roll. And I didn't know the things I know now, but he made me feel like, why did I make such a big deal out of eating a dumb roll?
Oh my goodness. Oh, the lessons our children teach us, and especially the ones, on the spectrum, how they do show us a whole different lens to see life that is beautiful and simple. And I love that he's like, why would this have any meaning to it besides it being a role? That is just
why are you
amazing.
giving this any meaning at all?
Right. And again, the meaning impacts your internal state of being and energetics. And those energetics are what influence your behaviors. So that's why this is so important. The other two things, the moral labels was the main one. Let's just touch real quick on the all or nothing mentality we get into, right? If we're on a diet, well, then it's going to be all the healthy foods and none of this. Or when we go on my daughter and her boyfriend went on a no sugar thing for 2 weeks. And I said, what's the purpose of this? Are you planning on never having sugar again? They're like, no. And, I thought, well, let me know how it goes coming off that. And sure enough, it was just a frenzy. It was a total binge. And, had the conversation of like, how do we just get it so you can exist with sugar and still have the treats if you're not going to go off it forever, but how we can get out of that all or nothing mentality. Like, how do we get out of that?
Or I can't eat one cookie. If I eat one, I'll eat the whole batch.
Yes.
Oh yeah. Like once the floodgate opens, I'm just going to keep eating them because I have that taste. Like I didn't want it. Mm-hmm. Well, and if you don't want it, then we're not eating it. But, but just I can't trust myself, right?
Yeah. Oh, so much.
I can't trust myself to not eat more than I would. So it's better I don't have any at all. It's all or nothing.
Those are the mindsets she just spoke of, you guys, that those are mindsets. And that is what gets us to cut off the things and build the dam against it. But when we do let ourselves, that's when it comes. And that is when we eat so much and we keep proving to ourselves, see, I can't be trusted around the food. And again, this is an issue of energetics. It's not an issue of you not having control.
Right.
Cheat days. As a trainer for 15 years, I promoted cheat days. I assigned cheat days to people and to myself. And even if it was just a cheat meal, I never could be energetically in a place to eat those things calmly. It turned into a meal, turned into at lunchtime, I'm going to get back on track. And then it turned into, okay, tomorrow I'll get back on track. And then
turns into a cheat day and it just keeps rolling forward.
Right. Those are powered by the damn kind of thinking of you can't until you can. And so, how do we coach around this? What are we recommending to clients? Are we recommending cheat days? Like what do you want to share?
No, we're recommending every time you eat, you check in, see if you're hungry. And if you are hungry and there's something there that appeals to you, if it is something that you truly are like, I really don't want to eat it, but I kind of want it, I will pause and I'll come back to it later to see if I still want it. Yeah. Or typically I will eat my food in order of nutrient value. Yes. I do that. And that helps me a lot because where the dam would normally break on certain things. Here's a perfect example last week. Side of sweet potato fries at mine and my husband's dinner. And I was like, I could eat a bunch of those right now. Yeah. But I'm going to eat my dinner first, which was full of, protein and vegetables and things like that. And I filled up on it. And then I was like, do I still want that? And I did want a few. So I had a couple versus the frenzied maybe feeling I would have had if I was eating those while we were waiting for dinner to come. Yeah. Yeah. So I think pausing sometimes and just saying, wait, do I want it? You can come back to it and circle around. And sometimes I want it. And sometimes I'm like, no, I'm good. Right. And that's what we start to learn. And that's a conversation for another day around pleasure. We have a very dysfunctional relationship with pleasure as a society. But what I want you guys to hear in regards to the damn eats is if we have allowance, first of all, we've dropped the moral labels. We are not telling ourselves you're never allowed to eat these foods while you're trying to lose weight and you always have to eat these. And if you just allow for them and know that there are times I'm going to want pleasure and I'm going to be honest with myself if I want it or not just like, well, it's available and it's here and it's my favorite treat.
many times I've checked in and I'm like, I'm really not in the mood for it, but maybe later when it's time to eat again, I may want it. When we make allowance for the food and we accept it as part of our lives and it's a neutral part of our lives, then we don't have to set aside a special moment that's going to get it all charged up again. We can coexist with it. And that is how we overcome the damn eats energy. Again, we need to go deeper in teaching you guys about how to allow for this and how to live amongst it, because for most of us who have dieted, that's a foreign concept. We can't grasp that we can eat for health and pleasure and lose weight and stay at a healthy weight. So right now we're just speaking to the energetics that happen, that drive the behaviors that keep sabotaging us. And let's circle back around to why we're teaching you this in the first place. It's one of the 3 reasons why you ever are wanting to eat outside of hunger. So we're not even talking here about eating a treat when it's within the realm of hunger. We're talking about, this is when you've checked in, your body's telling you, I'm good, I'm not hungry, right? You're passing by the office and they've got donuts out, and it's not even about, are donuts okay? Am I allowed to have that? It's like, well, let me see. Body's like, no, just had breakfast an hour ago, I'm good. Then if we can know that, oh, something else is driving me to want to eat right now, and it's something going on in my mind, and it's one of those 3 things.
Yeah. And let me add to that. Say the donuts are there and you're like, I want one, but I'm not hungry at all.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with saving it, shelving it, and later on when you're hungry, then deciding if you still want it or not.
Yes.
Or if it was just that moment, like sometimes that box of donuts opens and you're like, you take the breath in and you're like, maybe I do want one. I wasn't hungry before I smelled them.
Right. So remember, we are in an environment of abundance and accessibility with food. Think about how many times a day you just, the opportunity to eat something pleasurable is there. And it's not about can I, can't I, am I allowed to ever? It's about managing within this, body hunger versus mind hunger, and choosing to eat when it's your body asking. And like you said, I love that. Let me take this to my desk. And when it's time to eat again, I'll consider this as an option. And many times when it is time to eat again, I'm like, yeah, I still want the donut to be part of what I'm eating. And many times I'm like, I've moved on from that. I'll eat something else.
Right.
And the decision was not made based on the food, the donut. The decision was based on, first of all, hunger. And also, do I feel like it now?
Right.
So,
absolutely. And sometimes you want it in the moment because of the energy of everybody else around you.
mm-hmm.
So if you're like, okay, I'll take one and I'll see if I want it. When that energy is gone, you may be like, I don't even want it.
Yeah. How many times have we said after, like, oh, I just didn't even want it in the first place. Why did I ruin it? So social reasons for eating is a whole other topic, and it's very much a part of what influences. And that actually will be spoken of next week when we talk about the next mind hunger, which comes with that. So yeah.
Oh, well, I was just going to say, and kind of as a wrap up. So what we're saying here is there are 4 types of hunger, only 4 types. And when Robin first told me that years ago, I was like, really? I just feel like there's so many more. There are only 4 types of hunger. We've talked about 2: hunger, true body hunger. And then there is damn eats, which we just talked about. And then in the next 2 weeks, we're going to cover 2 more, and you're going to realize they really cover everything. And it's going to be so easy to distinguish between when you're not hungry, figuring out what kind of hunger you are, and then meeting that need.
Beautiful. Yes, that clarity makes all the difference. So great. We will be back next week to talk about the second mind hunger, and we will see you then.